You know, probably the very first thing that influenced me was probably my father, who, you know, grew up surfing as a young, you know, boy in Hawaii. And me growing up in California, it was like a natural progression. You know, right from pretty much, you know, being born, I think that skateboarding was already on the radar, you know, in our blood. You know, and I think that that would probably be where it all started, was because of those roots of surfing. You know, when I first started looking at the magazines, it was where you came from, and so it was all Dogtown, Z-Flex, and when I looked at the magazines, I saw Shogo Kubo, who had long hair, I had long hair, you know, and at that time, you know, growing up, hanging out in Venice Beach, you know, I looked at the magazines, I went to Dogtown, the skate shop, got my boards, you know, and then me meeting Jay Adams for the first time at Marina del Rey, you know, when the park opened, you know, seeing Jay and Shogo and Tony Alva skating 2 weeks before the park opened. You know, I went from looking at them in the magazines, me and Aaron Murray, who was a friend of mine who we started skateboarding together, we're looking at the mags. Next thing you know, we heard that Marina del Rey is opening up, and we're like, let's go there and check it out. And my dad's like, yeah, I'll take you guys down there. And we go 2 weeks before, we sneak in the side of the fence and we see him skateboarding, and next thing you know, there's Tony Alva, Jay Adams, Shogo, Billy, they're all just ripping the dog ball, and we're like, we look at each other and we're like, we were in heaven, you know what I mean? Like, here's our you know, idols now from the magazines right here in person. And pretty much that, you know, when that opened 2 weeks later, my dad realized that skateboarding was pretty much my passion at that time, and he's like, you know what? It's costing a lot of money to come here every single week to pay for skateboarding. He goes, I'm going to see if I could, you know, get a job, and he ended up becoming the manager of the skate park. And that was when, you know, Jay, you know, became my big brother, Tony Alva, Dennis Agnew, Polar Bear, George Wilson, you know, all these guys that you know, was in the magazine.
Yeah.
All of a sudden were my big brothers, and they were taking me under their wings, and I was skating with them at 10 years old. Shogo was one of my biggest influences on me, you know, identifying with somebody who else is Japanese, who, you know, I wanted to be in the magazines. He was in the magazines. He had like this cool, like, character, persona. Everybody, you know, gave him like respect. And I think that that's one of the biggest influences on me to start. And then Jay Adams as a person of attitude, you know, that he could care less about, you know, the money, the fame, that type of part of the career that most people are enamored for. And then, I mean, Tony Alva, who, you know, I revered as one of those guys who was like the godfather of skateboarding, and him doing one of the very first airs in a pool, and not only doing the very first air, but doing it with style. And still today, you know, skateboarding and doing his airs and just, you know, doing what he passionately loves to do. I would say Danny Way would have to be one of my favorite skateboarders of all time because of his imagination. And obviously doing big airs is what I live for, you know. It's what I ate and drank and slept about, you know. It was all about doing the highest air, and I was fortunate to have that and to be able to do that in our era, in our time. So to see him take that and to imagine it in such a huge proportion and actually do it. I mean, I was behind bars, you know, looking at the magazine and going, I can't believe this is happening. You know, looking at that ramp that he built and that 23-foot air, and I'm like sitting there going, man, why didn't we have ramps like that back in our day? I guess this is more personal, you know, but a guy like Mark Gonzalez, like, I look at his career, the span of his career, and it's very unusual. And another guy who I was able to, be there in his conception, being introduced into skateboarding and watching him skate, and then sponsoring him riding a Hosoi, Alva fish board, having a picture, I believe it might have been in your magazine. And he had a certain style to him that was unique. Even then, we're like, the way he skated, it was almost like, you saw something special about his approach. And we saw that immediately, how he ollied.